Alrighty, so let's go ahead and get started just so that everybody is aware. This session is being recorded. And if you do have questions for Dr. Grandner, please put them into the Q&A portion of the Zoom meeting. I'm Kim Edwards. I am a product manager here at Chemin Human Nutrition and Health. And welcome to our webinar series, Sleep for Your Good Health. So this first topic, you're going to be learning about what is sleep quality and why is it important to good health. And at the very end of the session, I'll let you know about our next webinar that will be coming up in just 3 weeks. All righty, so let's go ahead and get started. Michael really doesn't need any introduction because he is an internationally recognized behavioral sleep expert, and we really are feeling very appreciative that you're able to join us today, Michael. So thank you so much. I would like to share with those that are just maybe listening on their phone that Dr. Grandner is the director of the Sleep and Health Research Program at the University of Arizona Health Sciences Session or organization. He has many other positions and associations. One that I'll call out is that he is a certified behavioral sleep. He is certified by the Behavioral Sleep Medicine from the American Board of Sleep Medicine. So those of you that are able to watch the webinar, you can read through the other qualifications and positions that Dr. Grandner holds. And with that, we are going to go into about 20 minutes of topic, and then we're going to leave the last 5 minutes for Q&A. So Michael, I'm going to let you go ahead and take control, and we will get started. So thanks again for everybody joining.
Yeah, thank you for the very generous introduction. I'm really excited to present today. Okay, so let me start with, we're talking about sleep quality. So sleep is a universal, non-negotiable foundation of our biology. And I think it's important to start there because sleep is a part of our health. It's part of how we're built. It's as necessary as breathing air and eating food and drinking water. It's part of how our body is built. Yet our society sees sleep as unproductive time. And this becomes a problem because of this, we have, this has led to incentives for sleeping as little as possible. And I'm sure everybody listening can think of times in their life when they've been pushed to not sleep for one reason or another. So for example, so here's an image I found online, and I love finding these images online. It just shows the societal impression of sleep as something that we sort of toss away and we don't really value. Yet, another thing I like about this image is it really goes to show that, look, these people look like they're having such a great time, but they know they're going to be unreasonably exhausted tomorrow, that they know not getting good quality sleep is going to impact their daytime functioning. Yet we as a society still choose this anyway. And because of this, sorry, I'm just advancing here. I don't know if there's a delay or... There we go. Not only is this an incorrect perspective, but it's a potentially damaging one as well. So this way of thinking could lead to things like lost full and partial days at work, decreased productivity and efficiency, poor decision-making and memory problems, depression, anxiety, risk of suicide even, weight gain, heart disease, diabetes, car crashes, accidents, injuries, and errors, getting sick more often, requiring longer recovery, decreased work-life balance and increased stress, and increased alcohol, smoking, and other substance use. All of these have pretty strong data linking them to sleep health. And this is a wide range of potential health-related outcomes. So why is sleep related to all of them? It's because sleep is so foundational in so many physiologic processes. And because of this, we know that people who are not getting enough good quality sleep don't live as long for a number of reasons. So what is sleep quality? We know what amount of sleep is, but sleep quality is different from sleep quantity. This is not about how many hours of sleep you get. Sleep quality is about the quality of that sleep. Think of it like nutrition of sleep. So are you consuming enough calories? Are you eating enough food? That's sort of the quantity. But what is it that you're eating? If you're eating 2,000 calories of potato chips versus 2,000 calories of something more healthy, it makes a big difference. And that's the difference between good sleep quality and poor sleep quality, irrespective of quantity. In some ways, sleep quality can be objective. You can look at things like sleep continuity, which is how long it takes you to fall asleep and how much you're waking up during the night. So it takes you a long time and you're waking up a lot. That could be reflective of poor sleep quality. Also, you can look at different brainwave patterns and other biological signals during the night, like heart rate and things. And if they're not looking the way they're supposed to, it could be indicative of poor quality sleep. But generally, sleep quality is largely subjective. It's how refreshing and restorative your sleep is, or whether sleep is able to perform its functions in terms of recovery and repair and all that stuff in the brain and in the body. And the degree to which sleep is overall good or bad. So what is good sleep quality? So good sleep quality, it means that sleep was restful, restorative, regenerative, recuperative. It means that sleep was easy enough to obtain and keep during the night. Sleep was not excessively interrupted or obstructed, and sleep was allowed for sufficient daytime. Sleep allowed for sufficient daytime functioning, and it was satisfying and not worrisome, and it was a pleasant experience. I think it's important to note here that this is what good sleep quality is. And I think everyone listening could think about times in their life when either they had good or bad sleep quality relative to these dimensions. But look at the words here that are important in terms of defining sleep quality. It's things like that it was restful, that it was easy to obtain, that it wasn't excessively interrupted, that it wasn't a problem, that it worked. It's hard to measure those things objectively. How does one measure how difficult something is, or how excruciatingly uncomfortable something is? You can't really do that. Like with pain, you have to ask. And that's why sleep quality is very much a subjective measure. So how do we measure it? Well, we can measure it prospectively going forward with things like sleep diaries that can fluctuate over time. And that's how we can measure sleep quality. We can ask people how they're sleeping from day to day and look at this trend over time. We can also use self-report questionnaires that can assess aspects of sleep quality across a range of dimensions. And sometimes we can use objective measures like actigraphy and wearables that could capture aspects of sleep that might capture sleep quality. But generally, sleep quality is a subjective experience. It is related to important things, though. First and foremost, I think it's important to mention connections with mental health. Poor sleep quality is associated with worse mental health, including depressed mood. Generally, depression and poor sleep quality overlap. This is a strong, reliable, consistent finding. So here's some data. The image got, the words on the images got cut off a little bit, but I'll tell you what this is. These are all different symptoms of depression. So you have anhedonia, which is lack of being able to enjoy things. You have depressed mood. You have appetite dysregulation. You have feelings of failure. You have trouble concentrating, psychomotor symptoms like you're slowed down or sped up and fidgety, and suicide ideation. And this is a study we did looking at aspects of poor sleep quality in the general population, whether it's that their sleep itself was disturbed, like they had difficulty falling asleep and staying asleep. The daytime symptoms of poor sleep quality were that their sleep problem, whatever it was impacting their ability to function in the daytime. And the perception symptoms were that they're worried or distressed, or they're not happy or satisfied with their sleep, whatever it was. This wasn't about how long it took them to fall asleep. This was about what were they struggling with. And what you can see here is each of these are differentially related to each of these different parts of depression. It's not just about depressed mood. I should note that this exists for anxiety symptoms as well. All the different aspects of anxiety symptoms, whether it's juggling many things or worried about something terrible that's going to happen or worrying about things in general, all these sorts of things are related to poor sleep quality. Might also increase risk of thoughts of suicide. You can see on here that suicide ideation is elevated according to sleep quality. Actually, there's dozens of studies now showing that people who don't sleep well, it just about triples risk of suicide ideation. It also is associated with things like exhaustion, feeling overwhelmed and fatigued. And improving sleep quality could also improve mental health. There's a lot of data on this as well, that if you can improve your sleep quality, it can show benefits. A little bit about cardiometabolic health. So poor sleep quality is associated with weight gain and obesity. So here's some data that we published a bunch of years ago showing that in the US population, people who have poor sleep quality overall are more likely to be obese, they're more likely to have diabetes, they're more likely to have had a heart attack, they're more likely to have coronary artery disease, they're more likely to have had a stroke. These bars, you could say unadjusted, this is the relationship in the population. The adjusted is even after controlling for demographics and socioeconomics and things like that. And then the blue bars are showing that this relationship between poor sleep quality and these overall important cardiometabolic outcomes, it's also adjusting for overall health metrics and how healthy they are and whether they're in good, poor, or poor physical health. So sleep quality itself is related to these outcomes. Other studies have shown that poor sleep quality is associated with a 35% decreased likelihood of being able to lose weight. It's also associated with heart disease and diabetes. So another study showed that sleep continuity disturbances, so difficulty being able to get to sleep and waking up a bit during the night, was associated with a 20% increased likelihood of developing high blood pressure, even if you didn't have it before. Another study showed that people with poor sleep quality were more than twice as likely to have uncontrolled A1C relating to diabetes. A little bit about immune health. Meta-analysis of about 30 different studies shows that poor sleep quality was associated with elevated inflammatory cytokines, IL-6 and CRP. So this is important because these are molecules that play really important roles in the inflammatory system and in the immune system. And that poor sleep quality itself is associated with elevations of these, which is not a good thing. Poor sleep quality is also shown to be associated with increased likelihood of getting sick. So here's some data from Eric Prather's group at UCSF showing that people who had overall sleep disturbance, like how disturbed was your sleep, they were more likely to get head and chest colds, and they were more likely to get other infections such as influenza, pneumonia, or ear infections. So people who aren't sleeping well are more likely to get sick. It's important because sleep integrates your daytime exposures. So don't worry about all the details on the image, but the point is that when you're awake during the day, you're exposed to the world and all these different exposures. And when you're during sleep, what happens is your body consolidates that information and recalls it for future use, including in the immune system. As you're exposed to exposures during the day, the process of developing immune responses is highly sleep dependent. So that's why poor sleep quality can be associated with worse immune health. It's also important to note that poor sleep quality is associated with dietary health. So one of the things that we've showed was that lower protein and fiber consumption was associated with more difficulty falling asleep, more difficulty maintaining sleep, more non-restorative sleep, and more daytime sleepiness. This is at the US population level. Another recent study we looked at the US population level showing that overall poor sleep quality in general was associated with greater consumption of carbs and especially sugar and less fiber. So here's fiber coming up again. And we also showed that lower food security was associated with poor sleep health. So people who are not able to get enough healthy food is associated with poor sleep. So here's looking at the relationship between food security. See these titles cut off again, but I'll tell you what they are. So this is showing that there's elevated likelihood of difficulty falling asleep or longer sleep latency, trouble falling asleep, frequent awakenings, early morning awakenings where they can't get back to sleep, and elevated daytime sleepiness. And this is showing that people who have the lower food security where they're not able to get access to enough healthy food, they also have worse sleep. It's also associated with brain health. So here's an image from a study where what they looked at was they tracked people over time and looked at changes in brain health. And what they showed was that people who had more difficulty with sleep, whether it was A is trouble falling asleep, B is awakening during the night, C is waking up too early in the morning, and D is waking up feeling unrested. And what you could show is at the start, people with more sleep problems generally had worse cognitive function, but you can see that this declines faster over time. So poor sleep is associated with more cognitive decline. And so here's another study that looked at just brain changes in the hippocampus, which controls very important functions in memory. And you can look at 20, 40, 60, and 80-year-olds, and you could look at over a 5-year change in brain function. The ones with sleep problems are deteriorating faster across all of these age groups. It's not just in older adults, across all of these age groups and across these different domains of poor sleep quality. So poor sleep quality in general predicts important brain changes over time. So insomnia problems are associated with an increased likelihood of developing Alzheimer's disease across multiple studies, and poor sleep quality is associated with greater amyloid beta burden in the brain, and amyloid beta buildup is what leads to Alzheimer's risk. And sleep disturbance itself, just broadly defined, was associated with about an 80% increased likelihood of probable Alzheimer's disease in a large data set. So here's that data showing that even after adjusting for all kinds of different covariates, that didn't really affect the relationship. It was poor sleep quality that was associated with this elevated risk. That's why you see this unadjusted and adjusted. There's not a big difference. This also impacts daytime function. So here's some data from Mark Rosekind and colleagues showing that in a typical good sleeper, the cost of lost productivity to an employer is about $1,300 a year. In those who had poor sleep quality, this was more than double. If they weren't getting enough sleep, it was also more than double. And even if they're at risk where they didn't quite meet the criteria for either of those, but they did report some problems, they still were less productive. And they showed that the lost productivity was due to a wide range of issues. We looked at this as well in a large employer, showing that people who showed overall poor sleep quality, whether it was they had trouble sleeping, never, rarely, sometimes, often, or always. And then you could see the linear trend, which is like the effect for each unit increase in that scale. You could show that their overall productivity is reduced. And then this relative productivity, this is how productive they are relative to other people in their same job. It's also reduced if they have worse sleep quality. So we looked at productivity loss, showing that productivity loss was associated with not getting enough sleep, insomnia symptoms, daytime sleepiness, longer sleep, and snoring. So a bunch of different aspects of sleep quality here were related to productivity loss. And actually, what we found here was every single one of these items was one aspect of productivity loss that was associated with sleep in some way. And then when we looked at caffeine intake, we showed that this was only slightly moderated by caffeine. You clearly can't caffeinate this away. Poor sleep quality leads to worse productivity, and it can't be caffeinated. And I think the data are pretty clear on that. And so finally, poor sleep quality and overall health. I think, at this point, this should be obvious, but I want to end on this broad note that people with worse sleep quality are in worse health. So this is showing that people who have sleep difficulties are more likely to have fair or poor health compared to saying that they were in excellent health. So it's very hard to be in good health if you have poor sleep quality. So I know I just said a lot right there, and so let's get to any questions you might have.
Oh, that's fantastic, Michael. Let's go back one screen, and I am going to see if I can take over control again. Oh, there we go.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll open it up to questions here. And one of the questions in the chat is, what's the best way to measure sleep quality?
Yeah, I mean, this is something that, ask 2 researchers, you'll get 3 opinions on this. But I think the most accepted way to measure sleep quality is in a couple different ways at once. And it would probably the best way, in my opinion, would be using some sort of validated questionnaire that asks for multiple dimensions of sleep quality and and look at that so we know what it means and that it can capture lots of these different dimensions at once. So there's a few of these questionnaires out there that are used in research that are pretty well validated. That's what I would say would be a best way to capture it. And I think tied with the best way, in my opinion, is prospectively in a diary where you ask people every morning, how is your sleep quality, and have them rate it. And then you look at that over time and look at those daily fluctuations. Those are the two ways that I think are the best.
All right. And that led right into, should it be an objective or a subjective measurement?
Yeah, sleep quality is subjective. I mean, just like with pain, it doesn't make it less real that it's subjective. It's just we don't have the technology to measure it. We don't have the technology to measure how much you struggled to sleep. We don't have the technology to measure how refreshed you are in the morning and how restful your sleep was. One day we might. And we can use technology to guess at those things by looking at things like interruptions and things. But generally, sleep quality is something that right now has to be subjective.
Okay, fair enough. One of the questions that came in is sleep quality achievable by everyone?
That's a good question. I think better sleep quality than where you're at now is probably achievable by pretty much everybody. I mean, I'm sorry, leave it to a scientist to overqualify, but I mean, for some people, like there are certain medical conditions and things that are going to impair sleep quality. And there's not a whole lot you can do to it sometimes, like certain brain injuries or other things. You're going to have some sleep quality impairments. There's still often room for improvement. The thing about sleep quality is it could be improved. Actually, if you go forward a couple slides, I put a couple of tips for things that anyone can think about for improving sleep quality. So number one, keep a regular schedule. Your body likes regularity. Number two, exercising regularly, but not too late at night. Exercise actually helps promote good sleep quality at night. It helps promote circadian rhythms, and it helps with that recovery process. Number three, get light during the day, but avoid it at night. Light during the day helps set a daytime signal so your body can predict when nighttime is going to be, and avoiding light at night can help transition you into sleep. Number four, keep your bedroom cool, dark, and comfortable. Not rocket science there. If you can promote a healthy sleep environment, that'll be great. Number five, avoid excessive foods or liquids in the evening. That avoids things like reflux or having to get up to go to the bathroom. And also excess calories at night just get converted into weight gain anyway. Number six, put down screens before getting into bed. Screens work with light, but also all the mental engagement gets in the way of good sleep. Number seven, avoid caffeine, nicotine, and alcohol at night. People don't often think of nicotine as a stimulant, but it is. And alcohol might help induce sleep, but it makes sleep more shallow. One or two drinks probably isn't going to do too much, but know that that's what it's doing. Number eight, don't go to bed angry, worried, or upset. If you're going to be angry, worried, or upset, do that out of bed. You don't want the bed to become this place with this negatively tinged thoughts and feelings associated with it. Number nine, get rid of the clock. Not everyone needs to do this, but some people become obsessive clock watchers. And the first thing you do when you wake up during the night and you check the clock, what you're doing is math. And then all of a sudden you're worried about, am I going to get to sleep again? How much time do I have? How much was I? If you have to get up at a time, maybe set an alarm, turn the clock around so you don't have to obsess over it, because that can make things worse. And then finally, if you're going to nap, don't nap for too long or too late in the day. Just like you don't want to eat too big of a snack too close to dinner, it can ruin your appetite. If a snack could be great for maintaining functioning during the day, but you don't want a snack too big or too close to a meal. Same thing with napping. So all of these things, some of them are easier said than done because I did it in 2 minutes. But all of these things are things that people can start integrating into their life, and all of them could potentially help improve sleep quality, no matter where you're starting, whether you're already pretty good or if you've got some problems. There's lots of things you can do.
Okay, thank you. And we have time for just one more. Someone had wrote in, how has sleep quality been affected by the current pandemic?
Yeah, great question. There's a number of studies that have looked at this, and including some of ours. One of the things that we found was it's affecting everyone a little differently. It's affecting everybody in some way, it seems, whether it's good or bad. But it seems to depend on the person. Some people are getting more more flexibility in their schedule. So they're sleeping in a little later and they're getting a little more sleep, in which case it might be a good thing. Some people, the added stress is making it more difficult to sleep and their sleep quality is being reduced, even if they're sleeping slightly more. Some people are shifting a little bit. So everyone it's affecting a little bit differently. For some people, it's a problem detaching at night. For some people, it's more of a problem where they're waking up during the night and having trouble getting back to sleep. And I think, hopefully during this whole process, we can learn what helped, things like giving people more flexibility to maybe sleep in a little bit later. And then we deal with some of the extra stresses like these societal pressures and difficulty sort of detaching from the world. But yeah,
Great.
hopefully that was helpful.
Yeah, no, that was very helpful. Let's see here if we've got time maybe for one other one. Someone wrote in, are sound machines good or bad for sleep quality?
Sound machines could be helpful. There's not a lot of data on sound machines. So sound machines can be good for drowning out external noise and masking external noises. And so some people can use them as a cue to help fall asleep. For some people who are very sensitive to noise, they can help drown out some sounds. For most people, I don't know that they'll do a lot, but for those people, they can be quite helpful.
Great, thank you. So we're out of time. I know there's over 13 questions in the Q&A. So what we'll do is we will work with Dr. Grandner to get those those questions answered, and then we will have your sales manager follow up with you with the responses. And then we hope you can join us 3 weeks from now, same time, same day, and we will be talking about how our cognitive performance and next day functioning is impacted by your sleep. So Dr. Grandner, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate this educational session, and we hope to